So again, my name is Cecil Dearborn. I've been at ThoughtWorks for 3 years, but I think y'all heard the math that said I've been in the IT industry for 23 years, and I've been in consulting, in and out of consulting for 13 of those 23, and the other 10 just doing other stuff with other businesses. So Greg was just asking me a second ago, he goes, so are you like around their age, you know, like, and I said, actually, no, I just great genetics. So I actually next in September will be 45 years old. So, and I'm proud to say that.
So some of us are around
So,
your age.
there you go. So really, you know, and I thought about this when I presented. I said, okay, I want to come and talk, and I didn't want to make this into a big, like, commercial for ThoughtWorks, to the point of like, but at the same time, I wanted to talk about consulting and really talk about it from the perspective of ThoughtWorks, and really getting to talk about the Associate Consulting Program, which is the program for North America that I'm in charge of. And I recently took over this program about 4 or 5 months ago. And before that, I was lots of different things and titles, and I've had titles and things. So I'm not going to go through all those things, but I'm doing this for all of North America, and I can explain a lot more. As I sort of talk through this, and then Greg will sort of pipe in, and then we'll talk. At any point in time, just so that this doesn't become this boring me talk at you, and I don't, you know, and I feel, because I know you can lose people, and I was just telling Greg, I saw this 60-minute episode on TED Talks, and they talked a lot about TED Talks and around why the TED Talks last under 30 minutes and around 25 minutes is because most adults, after around 25, 30 minutes, they lose all interest in what's being talked about. And then I saw on the agenda I was supposed to speak for 2.5 hours. And I was so I've realized in this first 30 minutes you're going to get it all, and then everything else will just be like those Peanut episodes for those who remember. Wah, 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 wah. So I know I'll lose you all at some point, and just, I may throw donuts or something. I don't know. So, but at the same time, what I would like to do is, if you do, we will open up for questions at the very end, but if you have questions in the moment, let's talk about it. I mean, I don't mind making this into a conversation as much as possible. So let's if we can, we can. So the first part is like, really like, who is ThoughtWorks? So you hear a lot of people talk about all the different types of companies out there, and ThoughtWorks is just another one of these consulting firms. But you know, we like to think of ourselves as a different type of consulting firm. It's a 20-year-old. It's a 20-year-old company in 30 offices. I think it's now 32. We have over 3,000 people now in 13 countries. And for those that know anything about technology, we are the leader in what they call agile software development. A lot of the people out there that sort of came up with the Agile Manifesto, some of those people have worked for us, or they've been huge proponents of us and have been huge contributors in just how we run our business and how we approach. For those that have no idea what Agile software development is, it's really it's not a methodology, it's a set of principles around just a different way to think about how you deliver stuff, like you make stuff, right? And it's about the valuing of people, and putting people over processes. It's about caring about delivering things of value. And it's about learning as much as you can, as early as you can, as often as you can. So going in and realizing that there's no such thing as the perfect, right? You do things, you try them, you test them out, you figure it out, you make mistakes. It's a science, right? It's like almost anything that we talk about from a science perspective. You go in and you try it out, and you figure out what works and what doesn't work, and then you make modifications and you change it. And it's a whole concept around collaboration, and it's not built around individual heroes. It's built about people working together. Because, I mean, let's be honest, we always hear about teamwork, and then we all roll our eyes because people talk about working in teams and being in teams. But yet then when we talk about how we evaluate them as individuals, and we foster this whole culture of competitiveness, right? But yet we say, we're trying to develop something as a team. And there was a great article that just came out in was it Forbes? I just read Forbes about this whole concept of companies claiming they want to go agile, and yet they don't understand what that really means. And it's really about changing a corporate concept about how you actually manage your businesses. So that's what we do. It's all about software. It's all about solutions. It's for people that like technology. And at this day and age where we live now, everything's about technology. It's kind of hard to get away from it. A lot of solutions, I think people just think technology is computers, but technology is all these little devices and things and you use, right? There's medical technology. There's even technology around just, construction. So everything we live in a technological age, and even when we look at the things we do from a humanities perspective and helping people, technology helps bridge gaps and helps a lot of people out, and especially in even third world countries. So our mission is to better humanity through technology. I mean, it sounds great and blah blah blah, and the way we try to think about it is like, right, it would be great if we were a company that created products that we knew could go and change. But right, we're a consulting firm. We have clients, so we go work for them. We wish our clients all had this grand mission that we do, but not all of them do. But what we do is we take their money and then we use their money to go do good, right? So a huge part of our organization is built around impacting change. And so we very much strategically, especially in what we call the Global South, put offices in the Global South to help change the communities around. And we purposefully don't put them in places where they're already affluent and rich people. And we will put an office in a very poor area to help economically bring up that area. We have offices in Africa. We have offices in Brazil, Ecuador, purposefully. And we use the money that we make from what we call the Global North to help change the rest of the world. And even here, we fund a lot of other initiatives. Like right now, there's a huge initiative we're funding to help out with a lot of the work that's happening in St. Louis around Ferguson. And we believe in that. And our company has this whole sort of culture of talking about this stuff. We're a very weird little company in the way we talk about stuff and do things. And so, and there's some other talk, right? Blah, blah, blah. So, and I can say we're number one here, we do this. Bottom line is, we're technologists at heart. We believe in what we do. We try to be passionate about that. We try to work with our clients, and then we try to take that stuff that we learn and try to help. We all have side projects we do, trying to help and influence the communities around us. And in general, I think I talked about this, but why are we different? We definitely have a reputation of delivering. A lot of times, you have all these consulting firms that come in and there's a lot of talk, and we sometimes buck the system. We're known as the disruptors, which is a good and a bad thing. Some companies want that disruption, but when they really have us in the door, they're like, whoa. We can be a bit much, but we really believe in developing solutions and always stand on top of our game. We are definitely, like I've had people ask me before, like, oh, so what technology do you use? What do y'all do? I was like, what are you talking about? We use whatever is the right thing to use at the moment. I mean, we're always trying to learn and do new things. We're not a SAP house or a Java house. I mean, we don't think like that. That's not what we do. We like to know and deliver the right things using the right technology. And we exist in a lot of different areas. I'm skipping all this. I'm not going into all the technical stuff that means nothing to you guys. It's just technical blah, blah.
What a T-shaped individual is.
So, yes. So here's the deal. So most of the time, I like that. I was like, wow. So most of the time when you think about people, right, you think about skill sets. Like say, for example, oh, well, this is not going to work. Let me, I'll just move my hand. So a lot of times you'll meet someone, like I'll say, this is this person, whatever. And they'll say, I'm a Java developer, right? And then you'll have this other person, and they'll say, I do Ruby. And I'm speaking very tech, if you guys don't know any of these languages, don't matter. And then you have this person over here, and they're like, I do infrastructure, right? And so whenever you have a project, you have this, you got to go find the infrastructure guy, you got to go find this guy, and you got to go find this guy, and that's all they do, right? And if you don't have work for them, they just sit there and they go, I only do Java stuff, I only do this. We don't believe in that, right? We believe in, here's this guy, and he knows some Java, some Ruby, some infrastructure, right? And then maybe his level of depth is a little bit more with this. But he knows if I needed to bring him to the table, he can do all this. And this is not from just a development perspective, it's from other aspects too, right? So, you know, our organization is based out of, we have analysts, we have developers, and even with the analysts, you can't just say, I'm this analyst, I only know this business, I only can do this type of analytical work. No, you need to know how to be an analyst. And yes, you know, broad spectrum, you need to know how to go and facilitate. You need to know how to, you know, go do sort of requirements and know how to do conversations. And maybe you may be really, really, really good at certain specific things. And you're gonna make that your passion. That might be stuff that you write blogs about. That may be stuff that you're gonna go and do more, you know, investigation and more like studies on. And then we may make you the expert in that. But in general, it's about having multi-skills. And if you ever, I'm not sure if any of you have had work experience prior to, or if you've just been straight in the program, but if you have ever worked at any large corporation, you will know what I'm talking about. You'll meet these people. They're very specific about a job description, about what their job is. And the moment you try to get them to get out of that, they're like, no.
We have them in academia too.
Yeah. I tried to be nice about it because I have quite a few friends that work at University of Chicago and University of Illinois, so I know a lot about academia. But I'm like trying not to take jabs. And so, you know, and then more blah, 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 right? So you guys don't know about, like, I'm not sure how well it's nice stuff, and I believe in this, but I'm not trying to sell it. These are just slides I had to go grab because I didn't have lots of time. I do have another job, and it's not to present all day. But Forrester is a very well-known company that really, they come out with tons and tons they do lots of, and they're like, if you want to talk analytical, they're huge. They and Gartner are two of the bigger companies out there that do lots of research and analytics, and they look at industries, and they compile all this information. So I mean, literally, you can learn. If you've never heard of them, they're interesting companies to really. They're very expensive to get the reports, but like I think a report costs about $500. But they do some really interesting research on things, and so. We've worked with them in the past, and we've talked a lot about. There's benefits to the way we do things, and there's proven scientific benefits to the way we work, and the productivity, and the outputs and the results. So, do you ever?
Yeah, would you talk just briefly about your programs in developing countries? You mentioned offices in Africa and Ecuador and Brazil, and I was just curious.
So we have an office in Uganda. Well, actually, we did. We pulled out of Uganda. We pulled people out of Uganda because of when they sort of did the whole the gay thing and basically kill you if you're gay. We didn't kill the office, but we actually pulled lots of people, quite a few people out of that. So we have an office in Uganda that we're trying. We have offices in South Africa, Johannesburg, Quito, Ecuador. So Porto Alegre is a really interesting. Is it Porto Alegre is the one, or that one area? Is it Porto Alegre? Is that the one in Brazil? It's where the tech sectors went into that sort of undeveloped area. Is that Porto Alegre or the other office in Brazil? Recife. It's Recife. So Recife, there was a movement. Actually, we didn't start it. I wish we did, but I think it was Google or Microsoft that went into this really sort of undeveloped area in Recife, and they started to put these sort of offices, tech offices there to sort of, they just put the offices there. We decided we wanted to like go in and one step further, put the offices there and try to take the people in those communities and employ them. And if that meant upskilling them and teaching them, that's what we did. We're big about, part of what we do, like with our offices in India, is, here's an interesting thing. For India, for example, we're in Pune. We have 3 offices in India, and I'm not knowing them off the top of my head, but Pune is, you know them, yeah.
Pune, Bangalore, Gurgaon, which is a suburb of Delhi, and Chennai.
Chennai, so poor. We try not to make offices in other areas like outsourced, right? Where the benefits of having the people there are benefiting the global north here. We like to have our offices in those countries, and the majority of the work in those countries should be benefiting the companies and the communities in there. So we are very careful about having those offices to be like, subsets of our, office, be an extension. So those offices are self-supporting, self-sustaining, and they really work hard to try to find business there. Brazil is one of the cases where it's very difficult right now because you have to deal a lot with the politics of Brazil and just building it up. So to make sure those offices thrive, we will take business from here and try to put it there until those offices grow to become self-sustaining. We did that in China, and we do that a lot with India. So we try to make sure that we don't try to outsource. And then we have an entire different group called I always want to say OCTO, but it's OSCE, which is the Office of Social something Impact. We come up with these, y'all know this. The TLAs, except for these are 4 LAs. The 3-letter acronyms for stuff, and I figured that out. And really about that is we look at like social impact and social justice. What we try to focus on is look at social justice from a global perspective and not just from a local. And if we can, things that we try to align ourselves to, really we try to look at this have a much more of a national impact, a national footprint. So Ferguson we ended up being involved in because it became a national issue. It wasn't just about Ferguson. Some of the other areas that we've been involved in, so for a while there was a huge, in Africa, for example, there was a huge where people were selling counterfeit sort of medication. And so we came up with a very simple system for them to help identify counterfeit stuff. And we realized technology there is not as advanced. People don't have smartphones, but people do have regular phones, and you can do text. And what we did is we worked with them to use very simple text technology to be able to enter in a code that you see on the bottle and find out if it's a real. So we do things like that. There's a whole ton. I mean, you can go to our website and there's just tons of videos that'll make you cry. And sometimes I watch it, I'm like, I wish I could do that. But I'm part of professional services, and my job is to help fund. So then the others that are doing those things are able to do them successfully. Did that answer? Just to give an idea of just the types of work we do and where we're at is, there's software, I say we software development, but, product development, we do visual design, so we have people that come in that are part of what we call XD communities. We work with a lot of our clients with digital strategies, business architectures. We're getting into the space of retail, doing a lot more like retail strategy and organizational design. I point out the organizational design on this because organizational design is very hard. And so there are large other companies that have huge amounts of people that focus on doing that stuff. And we are very specific on how we get into that space. We try to work with companies as they're trying to change their digital, the way they want to deliver, the way they want to think about developing products. And we will help them redesign their organizations around that, and then we'll make recommendations and say, now you can go find some larger company that wants to go and spend all day long, training people. So, and last but not least, we have lots of books. Lots of people write books. And so we, part of our culture is we completely believe in open source. We're not one of those companies like we keep knowledge in and we don't think we can't share with anyone. Like we don't think like we have this weird intellectual knowledge that only we have to make us better than everybody else. We're like, if we learn it, we want to shout it out loud and tell everybody else. Some people write books, but even those, it's not really about making the money. It's just write the book so people can pick it up and purchase it and just read it. But we're big about just like sharing of information. Even if you go to our website, you'll see like we're constant people, and they're just regular people in the company that just write articles. And we write articles about lots of stuff. And, and it's just, and then we participate, in open source initiatives. And like I'm not sure if you're aware of like in Chicago, there's an OpenGov group that meets like weekly. Is it bi-weekly? Weekly. Because I'm not sure, Chicago like has this whole data where they've opened up and provided like all of this data that anybody can go to and get access to. And then you can do lots of analytics and statistics around it. There's a whole initiative around Chicago to do that. And so we go and participate to figure out like what cool things can we learn? And how can you use that data to look for trends in areas and to see if you can impact and create some change? Because it's interesting, like if you do the right level of analytics, you can see patterns. And then,
And so you can still publish
yes,
after you leave academia, if you wish.
always can publish. So that's ThoughtWorks at a high level. I had to do that. But the AC program is sort of my baby, right? It's not my baby, I didn't have it. It's like my foster child. Because at some point I will move on. I call it's not my adopted child because I'll move on and hand it over to someone else. So sadly, I don't know why I said foster, that's so bad. If anyone's a foster child, I really apologize in this moment for saying that. Yeah, but I don't take credit for it, but it's my job to try to usher it, moving forward. So here's the deal. So I'm gonna preface that again. I created some of these slides, others I reuse. So the person that originally did sort of like let me talk about the AC program, decided to be creative and use a whiteboard instead of any special graphic tools, and they drew things. Now, I don't understand why they felt the problem had to do with a cow and a tree. But somehow this cow has a problem because there's something up in this tree that he wants. And so y'all get it? Yeah. I don't know what this has to do with consulting or etc. So anyway, we had a problem in 2010. And here's, so up until 2010, ThoughtWorks, and you'll see this with some other, especially consulting firms when they first start, they build a lot of their base and their entire sort of, I hate saying resources, people, by getting lots of experienced people who already have it, right? It's easier to like, I know you know this, I know you're really good at it, come work for me. I know you know this, I know you're really good at it, come work for me. And so we built that and we built that and we built that, and our company was based off of that. But at the, what happens over time is people get older. People, as they get older, they kind of want to move on. They want to, the consulting life is a very, sometimes they're called road warriors. We do lots of traveling. We do lots of, changing of projects. And so people get older, they want to move on or they want to retire. And we saw that coming. We also were seeing that, the way we operated and who we wanted to be, it was very difficult to find those people. We have an extremely intensive interview process. And I told you earlier, like, this is the type of company we are and how we like to be. It's hard to find people that align to, that feel comfortable too in coming into our environment and working the way we work. Because it's kind of, well, y'all get it, academia. You get in rooms, y'all talk, you debate, da-da-da. It sounds like you hate each other, you're arguing, and next day you're out having coffee, right? Because it was just right? It was just a debate. Imagine that as a work environment where most people have never taught that's a professional environment at all. That's what we do. And we,
Question.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your hiring process? Because that's something we've been talking about with other presenters, so I'm just curious. What does that look like?
okay, so I think it may show in here too, but I'll do it. So our hiring process works this way. One, you come and you submit your resume and say, I'm interested in the job. And you go through a phone screening. And that's usually through a recruiter. And that just to make sure that we get a sense of, it's like a 30-minute chat. Next, someone else calls you.
But, I mean, it's important to know that there are certain types of positions we typically hire for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to know, when you apply, which one you're trying to apply for.
That helps. Always, whenever, this has nothing to do with this company, whenever you apply for a job, do your research, understand the company, understand the position. If you can, find somebody that worked for that company and ask about it. See if you can get some intel on what that position is, what it entails, is that something that speaks to you? A lot of times the websites alone, especially with consulting firms like ours, they tell you a lot about it. And then you don't, but it's always good to understand what the positions are and where your interests may lie. So, thank you. So you go through that, then someone else calls you, who is usually someone that's in that position. And that's what we call like our technical phone interview. And that's where we really they just have a conversation with you and see where your skills are, where they lie. Do they feel like you have the level that we need to bring you in to actually have an interview with us? And an interview is a little bit more complicated. Now, for those of you that want to like switch and become developers, that could happen. Our interview process requires, we actually send you an assignment ahead of time that you have to do. You have to submit the code. That code goes through a code review, and then that goes through a process. And then if you get thumbs up for that, then you're brought in. But then the interview process works this exact same way. You're brought in and you have three interviews you go through, face to face. And they're always with two people each, because we pair. One interview is based purely on what we call a skills interview. So there are people that are in that field that now get to like just talk to you and see, do you seem competent enough to do this? Usually there's an exercise or sort of like we put you through some simulation to just watch you see how you work in that. So if you're an analyst, we give you a problem. We bring in some customers, people to pretend customers. Usually it's a married couple and they're trying to redesign their house. And you have to just go. And we look to see just how you deal with conflict. How do you deal with, people asking for 1,000 different things? How do you sort of manage and navigate in a real live conversation? Because that's what our customers do, right? Part of being ready is you just got to be ready in the moment. There's only so much prep you can do. Then we have another interview, which is called the consulting interview. And that's really just understanding just your core. It's really just talking to you. Okay, now that we've watched you, now this is an interview where we're really just talking to you, seeing like, do you have the basic skills that it takes to be a consultant? And do you really want to be a consultant? I think certain people think they want to be it. And then when you really get down to talking about like real life things, they're like, it doesn't. And then the third is what we call, we keep debating this one. We call it values, but it really is it's an interview to look at, like, where are you coming from? Like, how do you think about the world? Do you even think about the world? Do you even care about the world? Do you even do service, or where are your passions, and how would you fit in when we have these weird conversations about Ferguson or gay marriage, or we're talking about like things that are going on, we're talking about the Iran nuclear deal. Like, could you sit around and be around and be part of those conversations, whether you agreed or disagreed, but could you have could you be part of it and not in a disruptive way, not in a very toxic way? Could you fit in and do that? And if we don't feel you can, no thank you. You can be the best person in the world, because that to us is just polluting the sort of, because you have to like those things to know that the work that we do feed into those things, or else just doesn't work. I'm always asked to do value interviews, so I could tell you some crazy. I do crazy stuff. Like anyway, I shouldn't tell you, just in case one of y'all interview, you know my tricks. But and we look at it in different ways. Like we want to look at for men, especially white men, like understanding do you understand privilege? Do you understand how do you feel about women in the workforce? And where's your mind around that? Do you even think about that stuff? And if not, why? I look at him. So, speaking of diversity, So we also saw, like, as part of ThoughtWorks and part of the internal conversation, we were big about, okay, we talk diversity. You know, a lot of people talk. There was this article yesterday about Facebook, right? And Facebook was one of the most lacking in diversity at their company, but yet has all this great diversity training and is now telling other people, hey, we can share our diversity training with you so you can have it. And then I did this whole Facebook thing about, oh yeah, diversity training, that works. I just tell you why, you know, there's not enough people around, and you go, yay, now I get it. And there still doesn't change the landscape of what you see around you. So we said, look, we can keep talking about this or we do something. And it ain't about diversity training. It's about, you want people here to look like people out there, then you have to make a concentrated effort to do that. And this is, again, was one of the things with the program. So then we saw our business was booming. So again, this and this. And then we were seeing this sort of distribution of, as people were staying longer, they were getting, higher in levels and skills. And so you literally, for projects, you kind of want a breadth of different types of people to come to the table. And you can't, one, your clients, as you move up in levels, your bill rates. I don't know if y'all know anything about bill rates, but so our clients pay us by the hour. Just to give you an idea, without me giving numbers, typically it's around over $200 an hour. That's just to put that in your head. That people actually pay people over $200 an hour. But they pay lawyers a lot more. So, hey, a friend of mine's a lawyer, and I think his minimum at his company is like $450. I'm like, what? And they pay in increments of 15 minutes. I'm like, so when somebody talks to you, that's 15. Oh, no. So we had these challenges, and so we said, okay, what are some ideas? The cow's still working it out. So first we said, okay, how about this? We've been so focusing on computer science. Maybe if we really want to talk about diversity and really talk about, and diversity is not just in diversity of what we all look like, it's diversity of thought, right? Maybe we need to step out of just comp sci majors and look for people in other majors and look for ways to develop them and take those things that we have from those other majors, because there's a lot of analytical thinking and there's ways you look at it. Because in truth, when we solve problems, we're solving people problems. And it's about people who know how to look at people and understand people problems and understand how to leverage technology and bring that in so that, you got to not be afraid of tech, but how do you bring that in, but have different perspectives, right? Because that's what it is. It's all about different perspectives. And y'all know this, right? One thing I loved about it, I'll give a shout out to my university. When I went to Cornell, one of the things I learned about, what I loved about Cornell is they forced us. I was a comp sci major, so I was a computer science major in engineering. I know that bores some of you. But they forced me to do liberal arts and forced me to focus on things outside. It was not an option. And I think that was one of the best things ever to build a much more well-rounded, human being. And I also think for our firm, to make it much more organic in nature in what we do, we have to have different types of people so that our thought processes are always sort of pushing the boundaries and going to another level. And then, the bottom line is we want smart, motivated people, again, with fresh ideas and perspectives. I don't know why he has a fish head. So here's the audio-visual component where I get to stop talking for a second. And here's what I'll do. I'll play this video. This in a nutshell will explain the associate consultant program. I thought initially I was going to talk it through, and then I thought, oh my God, this does it like beautifully. And then depending on the time, we might take a break, or I'll wrap this up with a few other details. So let me see if this works the way I expected it to. So part of what we wanted to do with the solution was we said, okay, look, we're going to take these people and we're going to take them, and either they're going to be coming straight out of college or they're going to be changing their career paths and their journey. So how do we bring them into this world? And so that's how the AC program was born. And I'm sure the lovely video. So there's a few corrections to the video. So starting in 2016, instead of just starting in Dallas, San Francisco, and Chicago, we are now, instead of people starting in those cities and then going out, we're actually starting them in New York, Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, San Francisco, without the whole moving around afterwards. And I think there's some, the rest was pretty much true, right? We take people in, we say, okay, hey, we're gonna bring you in. We are going to then invest over a 2-year journey in sort of helping you develop and become, a consultant. And so it's a 5-week intensive course out in Pune. My actually next batch that just went comes back next week, and then my next batch is going out, starts next week. It's always exhausting. So it's really like us investing. So we had decided that the best way to do this was find the right people, find smart people who had the right attitude, the right aptitude, and the right integrity, and we can teach you the rest. Obviously, the aptitude means you have to have some cognitive thinking, especially. So that is our AC program. I still have time, so I'm going to do this really quickly. So, and that goes through its own level of intensive hiring process, very similar to the one I mentioned. For the rest of the firm, very similar. We phone screens. It's less 2 levels of phone screens. It's 1 level of phone screen. Then we bring people in. We go through this whole intensive interview process. And the interview process, the way our interview process works is it's not just one person that interviews you and makes a decision. It's a collective. And so, it's a collective that makes the recommendation. It's me that makes the decision for the AC program. I have the final say. So, but I never have made that final say without everyone else being on the same page, because I've only once overrode and took a chance. And I have a deal with them. I will do that with 2 people every year. Those are my 2 people I have faith in that just sort of touch me, and I believed in them more than maybe what other people saw, because there was just something about them that I saw. And that's also based on years of experience where I used to do professional development in other areas. Yeah.
I have a question. So we've met with a couple consulting firms that do different things.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking of this is a hypothetical situation. I'm a philosophy PhD, and how does the training process cater to people with different backgrounds? Is it a one-size-fits-all, or is it you're coming with a PhD, you don't have a business background nor a consulting background, but you're not the same candidate as an undergrad who's kind of maybe taken general classes and
Right. So that's where it gets difficult. So part of, and usually that's where we usually find problems with people who come in with PhDs, because the 5-week course that we do in Pune, it's a global course, right? So it's very hard to tailor it to very specific people. It has to sort of take people from Germany and India and England and sort of put them through a consistent path. So what we do with the rest of the program is very tailored to who you are. But what I always tell people, when you go to India, the goal is for you to understand what it means to be a part of something. Realizing when you go through lectures and being taught, not everything is being taught to your level. It's just, that's impossible to do with the amount of people that we're taking. But if you think about the entire program, it is very much tailored to you and what you bring, because it's about aligning you to very specific coaches, very specific learning coaches, and people teach, people that either have very similar backgrounds, and so they're spending time with you. And then when we talk about staffing and putting you on projects, it's all about your background and what you are and how you've been assessed to make sure that that journey for those first 2 years align to help you grow based upon where you come from. For a good example is someone that just came back last a few weeks ago had some experience. She was not a PhD, master's, and she had experience. And so I had to sit her down and say, look, I know when you go to India, some of this stuff is going to, because some of the conversations we have to have are about professionalism, about being responsible. And most of you that go to higher degree and higher programs, you sort of heard that and you've learned that and you've learned sort of you've learned that stuff, where people, some in the undergrad, still don't get it. And so I said, when you hear the messages, it's not to you. Just use that time to meditate. You know, do something else with those 20 minutes that goes, and don't take it personal. And understand that's an experience for you. And look at how, because these are the people you're going to be working with, and understand that's the messaging to them. And maybe you can use those as teachable moments to teach them. So part of the experience in India is also for the reason why we take different people from different backgrounds is for you to teach each other as well. But the rest of the program outside of India is very tailored to that. But India, that 5-week program is not. I always like to say that because people get really sensitive.
So I'm a philosophy PhD too. Now, unfortunately, I started at ThoughtWorks 15 years ago, and things have changed quite a lot since then. But there are, the thing you need to realize is even though we're a tech company, inside the tech business, there are roles for people who are not actually coding.
Oh, God, yeah.
And the sort of skills that you have and that you bring from philosophy or actually from any sort of analytic-based study can be very valuable. You just have to be able to package that well, and if you're applying to a company like ours, know the right sort of position to apply for. And I don't know, I was always tech-friendly from the very beginning since college, so it was easier for me to point to things and say, hey, look, I can fit into a tech company because I did this, 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 and this. I don't know how tech-friendly you are, but certainly the ability for you to think through analytically problems is key to some of the roles that we have in our company.
Can you just speak briefly about what exactly do people learn during the 5 weeks in India? Because I think I read something about coding and
So
designing technology,
yeah.
but I'm not sure.
So depending on, the main roles we hire, right, in our entry level program are developers, and I'll say analysts. Now, out of the analysts, we have business analysts, quality, and this sort of user experience. Yeah.
So when you apply for the AC program, you specify which of these categories you want to apply for? Or
Yes.
Okay.
So yes. So typically, people will. How do I do this? Either you apply for a developer. Some will say I apply for an analyst, and then we assess whether we think you'll be better as a business or QA. Or you apply for user experience. People that typically apply for user experience have a design background of some kind, or design experience. Lots of people we get come from Parsons and those, but those are people with design experience because it's really about user experience and understanding sort of the design nature of how do you look at interfaces and things and how people respond to colors and all that stuff. I'm not as you can tell, I can barely talk about it. And then business and quality analysts that are just very similar. Like a business analyst is just that person. Their job really is to meet with the customer, understand how the customer works, understand what they're trying to do, and help facilitate the conversations to really get to the heart of what it is they want and need. And their job is kind of is to get it, understand it, help them get to the right place, because sometimes the customer think they know what they want, but they really don't understand what they want until you help point out that's not really what you want. It's very psychological, right? It's a lot of getting into the customer's head and trying to truly get to what it is you want and being able to then help communicate that to the developers. So you come in with one of these, and then the QA is sort of like it's not, I hate saying tester because it's not a tester. Testing is part of it, but it really is about making sure that we understand what the customer wants and we deliver that. And making sure that all along the way we have the right steps taken to ensure that. And then they're the last moment trying to check it to make sure, right? So they do a lot of analytical work too, and they do a lot of asking why, right? Our job is never just to do something. Customers get upset sometimes because they're like, I want this, do it. And I'll go, why? Like if they say, I want that green, why? Like, God damn it, you always asking me why. I'm like, because it's important. Because maybe it shouldn't be green. If I understand why you wanted it green, I can maybe tell you why it really should be red, you know? So that's why we're called consultants. We're not called doers or whatever the hell, you know? Like, so.
When I started as a business analyst. And I always saw my job primarily as being able to get into the heads. I had to be able to communicate with the geeks who were writing the code. And I had to be able to communicate with our clients who usually had some idea what they needed, but they couldn't quite, they didn't quite know what exactly they needed. So a lot of the work that business analysts do is also trying to figure out how our customers currently do their business, what their processes are, and then helping think through with them how those can be improved, and in what way technology might help that. And then when you come up with if you come up with a technology solution, you have to be able to articulate that for the developers so they can actually write something.
So these guys code, these guys don't. Depending on what type of user experience person you are, you might have some, because HTML, CSS, and those things, you might have some coding experience. And these guys, it's pseudocode because there's this whole concept of automated testing, and so you learn some type of scripting languages, but not all, but some are a lot deeper than others. And some business analysts, but part of the training when you're out at TW, we call it TWU, by the way, ThoughtWorks University, I should have mentioned that. That's not, they don't do any coding. That's not their job, primarily. So it is not a requirement that you know how to write code to do different aspects of the job.
Could you learn it though? If you
Oh
want?
my God, yes. So I actually have a BA right now who is really into it and actually is asking to do a career change into it. So the Code Academy that Allison talked about, we actually hire out of those Code Academies. And some of our, like one of my QA is actually going into one. Going into Code Academy because she wants to explore maybe becoming a developer or really taking QA to a whole nother level. So in our company, we sort of define these, but at the same time, these roles take on a life of their own depending on the individual. But you have to have a passion to do it. You just can't talk about it. You got to do it and you got to show the value of what you're doing in the direction. And if you show it, we just go. You want to go do that and there's value? Go do it.
And we also let you change.
We let you change.
I have one of the women on the team I run in Beijing started out as a developer, and she wanted to change and become a business analyst. And she had the skills for doing it, and she was good. She actually went to TWU and became a developer, and then within a year and a half after she got back, she wanted to switch.
Yeah.
So
someone just asked me to switch last week, and I said, okay. So yeah, but I just want to, because I know some people, when we talk technology, they freak out. They're like, I do not want to develop. I'm like, you don't have to. I just happen to have been, I had the privilege, and I'm fortunate, and it's a unique experience where I've done all of these roles except for this one. I have, and so I find value in them, but I also learn by doing each of the roles which ones I kind of liked and which ones I was like, I can do it, I just don't want to do it, And so, in every job, and I will say, every job has good and bad. I will never, and that's why I sort of do it this way, because I don't want to make anything sound grandiose, and because it's great, but it's all challenging, right? Every job has the really cool parts, and then all of the admin stuff you got to do. That's just part of the job. And every single one of these, I can tell you really cool stuff, and I can tell you the stuff that will make you roll your eyes, but it's just part of the job. Almost there, and then I'm done. So the program, in a general way, so I think I said this again, it's the whole attitude, aptitude, integrity. And I really like emphasizing attitude because I don't like people with bad attitudes. I think they're toxic. I think they take away from productivity. I think there's people who have victim mentalities. I don't like working with them. I think there are people who, I have this quote, and I always use it with people. I say pain is inevitable, but misery is a choice. People that sort of everything's sucks and miserable, I'm like, you chose that. And everything you're blaming and all this, that's a choice on you. But there's pain with change. There's pain, there's pain with anything, but the whole miserable thing, I'm not a huge fan. So I try to weed those out. Aptitude, I can't teach you to learn. You have to be able to, for us, you can't work, we believe in continuous learning. If you're one of those people that just don't like to learn a lot, aren't motivated and expect people to teach you all the time, and you can't go out and figure out stuff on your own and learn and have a passion to go find out stuff, this is a wrong company. Because it just doesn't work. And then integrity for me, I have this whole thing, and I tell people all the time, integrity is binary. It's the only thing that I think is binary and isn't on a scale. Either you have it or you don't. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, either I can trust you or I can't. There's no, I can sometimes trust you. And so we look for that and we try to build those skills, right? And it's a 2-year program, as I mentioned before. The other cool part is the way we do it is there's plenty. We're feedback culture. I have to say this very carefully. We promote feedback culture. Sometimes we get bad at doing it all the time. But we really try to promote feedback constant, right? We're not a company that believes in, wait till your 3-month review or year review to get feedback. It's like we try to get feedback in the moment. And as part of the program, we do like feedback every 6 months. So every 6 months, we do reviews, hoping, and that's to force them to constantly get feedback all the time. We do reviews every 6 months, and every 6 months in the program, then we do salary increases as well. So it's the only time in ThoughtWorks that you get a salary increase every 6 months. Everyone has 3 coaches. You have a people lead, a learning coach, and you have your own sort of personal coach. And those are people that throughout the course of the program sort of just make sure. The people lead is sort of that anchor that's focusing on your career, your development. They're the ones that sort of walk you through this process, follow you through. Your other coach is sort of like that mentor, someone that's in the field working. And then your learning coach is focusing on learning. I talked about the continuous learning sessions, staffing we discussed before too, right? It's all about, we do targeted staffing. It's not always about what you want, it's about what you need. That's the whole point of the program, is to really assess you, understand who you are, where we think you need to grow, and try to put you in those situations to get you that experience and to sort of test you out to see if that works. And I think I mentioned this way earlier. The whole point of the program is to foster the concept of collaboration over individuals. The reason we even take people of experience and put them with inexperienced people is so, okay, fine. That's what we do. So guess what? Now you teach others. It's not all about you being taught. It's about you teaching others. And it's all, so it's really about, it's not all about you. It's about us, and it's a we, and that's what we do. We collaborate to make it happen. And so we purposefully do these things to try to get people to focus and think like that. Because it's great, and I think we all feel that way, and we all want that in the world, but we've all been conditioned, right? We've all got brought up, and most of us brought up here in this country, and we've been brought up in very specific systems that sort of make us pit ourselves against each other. And as much as we want to believe in being good, sometimes inherently the actions we take are counterproductive to the things that we say. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So the whole point of the program is to really kind of get that out of you. And I'm not even going. This is just to show you, it's actually planned out. So it's an intense program planned out. I'm not going. This is just the journey. And it actually starts, before people even start in Chicago the first week, we actually start working with you a month beforehand to prep you. So even before the first day you start working. So I'm going to do these numbers and then we're taking a break. So I talked a lot earlier about the program and about what we were trying to achieve. Remember early on I talked about we wanted this program in 2010 to start addressing diversity, looking at people outside of CS, and really, and I forgot to mention, like ThoughtWorks 2 years ago, we made actually a commitment internally in ThoughtWorks. When we looked at ThoughtWorks, we said, okay, we keep saying we're trying to meet these numbers, but here's one thing we're going to do. We're going to get our company to be where at least 50% of it is women. We don't care if people want to call it quota or whatever, but 50% of it is going to be women, and we're going to work extremely hard to make that and to bring women in tech and do a lot. And part of that is not just, you just can't just go hire and say, hey, like a lot of these other companies are doing, right? We're going to be diverse. We're going to start. It's like we had to like actively go out and start working, like doing Black Girls Code, and really, and we are a huge sponsor of Grace Hopper, if anybody knows what that is. And huge, like really, and saying, if you want people, there are lots of capable people to do this job. The point is, a lot of these companies expect them to come to them versus those companies going to them. And especially when you're in systemically discriminated groups, you don't feel safe sometimes, right? And so the companies who say they care need to show in some outward way that they care, and that means going out into those communities. So, bottom line, today, I did the numbers I just did this on Monday. So we have 125 associate consultants in the program right now. Of those 125, 54% are women. So, and you think about the whole point of this is to create a new future for ThoughtWorks. So 54% of women. If I look at the numbers for the hires for 2015, 60% were women. Right now we're calling the historically discriminated against, changing that to the systemically discriminated against, because I think that much more really speaks to what we're talking about. We're at 26%. And then for people that are non-CS majors, this was always wild to me, 63% of the ACs have no CS degree whatsoever. And then you break that down, 4% of them are BAs, 4% are XDs, this XD, by the way. Don't ask why user experience versus, we used to say UX, but they now like to call themselves XD. 12% are QA and 80% are devs. So of the 63%, think about it. Some of those are even devs. People like, they just go and they do boot camps. And so, the proof, I always say you can talk it, but in the end, are you really walking it? And I always like to end with this to show this we are. Like, we had a goal in 2010, and we're strongly meeting that goal. And I'm proud of that. It takes a lot of work. And it can be frustrating. And I always say, look, and we just don't hire to hire, to meet quotas and numbers. We have to hire the right people, but it just means we have to do more work to find the right people. Which is like kind of why we're here, right? Just talking about what we do. So that was it for all of that. And then what I think I'll do is I'll take a break, and then we'll get to, well, why are we talking to you? And then we'll get into that, and then that's when he talks. So 10 minutes, or here's the exciting one. I have one more slide, and then I'm done. Welcome. So I had I'll do the question after. So do one more slide and say, why you? Why are we talking to you? And this is why I just had this one slide. And it's really about, I always love little quotes. You can read the quote on the side. Just, I see my path, but I don't know where it leads. Not knowing where I'm going is what inspires me to travel it. I kind of believe that in life in general. People have asked me, like, what do you want to be in 5 years? And I'm like, me, but better. I'm not big into I have to have this whole well-defined path out in life. I'm big about living life and making sure that I'm living the best that I am today and every day. And I do that in my work and travel, in my work and business life as well. So, but why you? I didn't put on here, but I was gonna say, maybe there's a different path for some of you. This is not meant to be talking to everyone here. It is to talk to some of you that maybe want a different path in life. Some of you that don't want to go and teach. or go and write books for the rest of your life. I don't know. Just some of you that may want to take what you're doing here and intersect it with technology in a way that you never thought of before. And you know, for us, we're always looking for diversity in technology, and again, diversity of thought, not just in look and, you know, background. And for us, and for you, great solutions come from great minds. So knowing people that sort of like to think and come up with solutions, and maybe you're one of those people that want to solve the world's problems in a very different way. Unfortunately, some of our customer problems are world problems that kind of sometimes you have to think about and go, is this really the world problem I want to solve? You know, like for example, if you're working for a major airline, do I really care about their scheduling system? But it does have an impact, right? It has an impact on people, and sometimes you have to pull back and go, this really does have a larger impact on the world at large. And then it's just, you know, for those that want to go into business, really business and technology are not separate anymore. And so I always say try to find companies, even if not us, companies that believe and get that, because those are the companies that are growing and sort of evolving. The ones that don't believe that are kind of stuck. And I'd strongly tell you, don't go work for some place that's stuck. You'll be miserable. But that was it. That was me sort of saying, this is just a different option. It's something different. But you can talk to someone and Greg's gonna go through and talk about a little bit about his journey, and then we can still ask questions. And there was one question that came up, and I'll get to that after. But Greg, you wanna just talk about your journey and?
Well, I mean, why don't we,
Or you just wanna?
why don't we give an opportunity to ask more questions about
Yeah.
the program before.
There you go.
Yeah. Are there costs? I mean, what this program coming into it, is there like an initial investment on behalf of a potential participant? And what does that look like
paid from the beginning.
in the beginning?
The only cost, the only cost in the beginning is your time. So remember earlier I said there's a month prior to you joining the firm. We do ask for people that come into the program, this is a huge investment for us. It's not, you think about it, and think about all the things we do. Even at our rates, it takes a while for us to recoup a trip to India, and the expenses there, and back, and hotel stays, because there's the first week you come, we put you in a hotel for a week. It's a lot that we put into that. And all we ask is the month before you do some work to prep yourself so that you don't come in completely at zero, at slate zero. That's the only cost, is your time. Nothing out of your pocket. Oh my God, I've had companies interview me, and then a company, and then you start talking more and more, and you're like, what? I shouldn't have to pay you to work. Like, no. If a company does that, please walk away.
Actually, just following up on that a little bit, what are your retention rates for within the program and then after graduation?
So I just did some analytics. Our retention rate right now in the program, and that's, when I say retention, that's gonna include voluntary and involuntary. So if you think voluntary means you left on your own accord, involuntary means we told you to go. I like, we're a nice company, we try to be great, but we're still a company, we still run a business, and some people just aren't good fits. Right now, we're under 10% retention rate. I want it less.
Just the AC program?
Just the AC program. ThoughtWorks in general, I don't. They just met to just. Attrition. No. So, sorry. I'm always thinking attrition. So our retention rate is 90%. No, we cut the rest off. We only top 10, and then the rest goes. I told someone yesterday, because we were like, she bought some beef jerky, and it was like spicy, and I said, that's gonna be my new thing. Everyone shows up, I'm gonna get the spice, and everyone has it taken. The first person that drinks water is the first to go. And then I told her I was gonna call it her method. I was like, I'm gonna call it the Victoria method. She goes, that's wrong, that's so wrong. But no, my goal is I want everyone to stay, right? And we don't do the whole like, every year, let's look at the top 10 and the bottom 10, and let's get out the bottom 10. We don't do that. The goal is I want to hire the right people and keep the best people, and then it's not about any level of attrition. But attrition naturally happens. Ideally in the program, especially, we've only, like rarely do we lose anyone the first year. This year was a weird exception. We had 2 that we lost the first year. But there are some competitors out there that are hungry for our employees. And so they're willing to offer things that I think are insanely ridiculous. And when they do that, we don't do the negotiation and compete. If you think that's better for you and in your long run, we say thank you for being here. We think it sucks that we invested so much for you to take that investment and use it and just leave. But that's you. That's your integrity. That's what you have to walk away with and live in your life. I always say karma's a bitch. Yeah.
Could you just talk a little bit about who some of your clients are and what kinds of projects you work on? I have a good sense of your sort of company culture and this program, but I don't actually have a good sense of
So
what
in-
We
Sunworks
can't name
does.
names,
So in
we
ge-
can name
yeah.
types of
Yeah.
businesses.
So we can't really, unless they are like, for example, like on our website, we can name like who's ever there on the website, but I don't know who's on the website, the
Right.
companies. But most of our clients, just by in consulting in general, it's sort of like a faux pas to name your company, your clients. But
I guess the question is more, I just don't,
So-
not coming from the tech sector, I
Some of
don't
our
have
clients-
much
so-
of a sense of what ThoughtWorks does.
So if you think, so some of our major clients, because we go across the spectrum. So some of our major clients are major airlines in the United States. Domestic was once domestic, now international airlines. We work with them for a lot. We actually created their .coms. They were the first airline to actually go into e-commerce space. And we created their .com site, which actually brings in more business than actual sales anywhere else in the company. The most revenue that comes, it comes from online for this airline. And we help create that, and then we've worked with them on their crew scheduling system, and we work with them when they decided they want to go international, and they were challenged trying to work with other companies to do that. We came in and we saved that day. So one major company, we do a lot. We help them with a lot of the transformation and delivery. We work on various systems that they have there. Another is a huge retailer in North America. Can't tell who, but clothing retailer that owns a series of different types of clothing brands.
I mean, the short answer is we work for pretty much any industry
Yeah.
that needs a custom solution.
Yeah.
Because that's what we don't buy or we don't build, well, usually, mostly.
We
don't
avoid-
build products that, like a Microsoft Office or anything else that people buy off the shelf. Companies come to us because they have a unique problem and we build a unique solution.
But those are certain clients, right? But we span
And we have big banks.
Big banks.
A lot in travel, retail. Point of sale system in the UK.
major food distributor in the United States.
Right, I mean, it's,
And you're designing software systems for these companies, basically.
yeah, usually we're ending up building something.
They either want a system or some type of, like some of our clients literally want us to come and look at the way that they work and help sort of transform the way that they work. And they say, we hear you guys work like this. How can we do what you do? And usually what we tell them, look, we can come and we can tell you, but unless we show you, you're not gonna. So what we usually try to do is say, okay, we're gonna come and we're gonna show you, and at the same time help you change. And I'm not sure if you guys have ever dealt with people in change, but rarely does it ever go the grand way that you want it to, because there's resistance at so many levels, right? Some of the smaller companies we work for, and we've worked with startups, a lot of time, we've worked with, we work with some interest. There's some companies I see and I am, like one in general, I'm like, they hired us. Because they're major tech, like some of the major tech companies and some of the ones I may have mentioned earlier today and talked about have actually hired us. So we've actually worked for them. Some of the major tech companies that you think, oh, they would hire a consulting firm, we work for them. Reason we don't talk about it is because, right, those companies don't want that out in the news that we're doing that, right? Well, we work for them and we help them deliver. One in particular I can't talk about, it would be so exciting to talk about because it's kind of really cool, And some of the stuff we do is cool, but I always say cool depends on who tells the story, right? It's all about marketing. I think a lot of times people, there's so many, like the grass is always greener on the other side, because certain people can tell stories really well, but work is work. And it's usually the end product that's cool, but the journey to get there is always crazy, right? And that's what our job is, to get to these end goals, end products, and you feel good in the end, but when you go through, you're like, oh my God, are we ever gonna get there sometimes? Because you're dealing with so many different challenges, but we do some really cool stuff when you look at it, like when you pull back and you look at it. Sometimes day to day it goes, you're like, why am I doing this? And I mean, I'm being honest, like there are days sometimes I go, why am I doing this? And then I'll look at everything I did and I go, oh, that was really cool. And you start thinking about the things you learn. Like I am sometimes amazed at the conversations I can have and be parts of and talk about. And I go, where the hell, how do I know this stuff? And it's just because you're constantly surrounded by people that are learning and talking, and it's just kind of neat. It's neat from that perspective. There was this, yes.
So hypothetically speaking, say some of us want to join your company, and we think to ourselves, do I have a good attitude? I have a good attitude. Do I have aptitude? Definitely have aptitude. Do I have integrity? I sure hope so. So say we're applying. So the question is, how do we show those things in a resume? How do we get our resume, which may be different from other people applying, past the recruiter to show you that we have these attributes?
So here's the interesting thing. It's not your, so I forgot to mention, there's a questionnaire you fill out too. And we look at that questionnaire a lot. It's about how you answer those questions. And we ask some very pointed, interesting questions. I don't want to tell you what they are, because if you apply, you'll see. And it's really about, it's not about you having flippant answers, and it's not about you coming up with because I always tell people when I interview them, please do not do the standard interview with me. I'm gonna call you out and tell you to stop. I don't like standard answers. I want you to be real. Be professional, meaning think before you speak, but be honest. Be honest about what you're capable of and what you're not, and where you have areas to grow. When we ask the questions, we're interested in you giving real, from your heart, answers. And we ask you a lot about world politics. We ask you about who are you. We ask you about the way you cope. What are your coping mechanisms? And we look for just how you really respond to those. And are you doing the textbook answers, or are you actually giving us real answers? That's how you get through our interview process. The rest, your resume, we see you went through school, and we see if you have any kind of analytical background, wherever, and it's like, okay, great. And it's the rest that you have to do really well at. The resume part is the easy part. All you gotta do is just show you actually have been doing stuff, literally. Show you've been working on stuff. Show that you actually do stuff besides just go to school. And then you can pretty much get through that process. Literally, I mean, there's no like keyword search and stuff we do. Yeah.
So feel free to deflect this question until offline and off camera perhaps. But you mentioned a couple times the importance of the.
I forgot about that
Thought I'd signal that before but the importance of culture and integrity. For example, if you're not someone who thinks about privilege, for example, you're not someone who's going to fit in at ThoughtWorks. But you also work with a lot of companies outside, and you have sort of mentioned a couple times that not all of those companies' values might line up with ThoughtWorks, or they'll think about those things differently. They might not think about privilege the same way you do, or at all. Can you talk a little bit about how you navigate those relationships when those things come up? What do you do?
We generally, so when we go through a sales process, part of what we're doing is we're trying to align our work with companies who we feel are either socially responsible or socially neutral. It is part of what we consider before we sign a contract with anyone. Now, that doesn't mean, that all the companies we probably do work for, we don't do in-depth investigations as to whether or not they're sourcing their materials from a sweatshop in Thailand or something like that? I don't think we do.
No.
But if, you know.
But
if
when it
we-
comes up, we.
Yeah, if we knew about that, then that would certainly go into a consideration of whether we would continue to do business with that company. So we have actually in the past ended up doing business with companies that we then later discovered were not really aligned with our social goals. And we, as quickly as we could, you know, extricated ourselves from those relationships.
It's
But
tough.
yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's really tough because our owner and president is really passionately about social justice, and he, you know, will constantly, you know, get on our case for asking why are we using Google and Apple products, you know, in our business to do our business, because look at what they do, you know, look at where their stuff comes from, blah blah blah, and that sort of thing. And look at what, you know, they give over to the government and everything else. So we're constantly on edge ourselves, and we have a bad conscience about a lot of the things that we sort of are forced to use, like Gmail and, you know, Apple products and such. But there's a realization that we couldn't do what we're doing if we actually made sure that we weren't touching anything that had some sort of, at least some
Footprint.
tinge of social injustice or immorality about it.
So, but we do. So, did I answer that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because I was kind of, yeah. And since I've been at ThoughtWorks, I've seen there's been one particular, prior to me coming to ThoughtWorks, that was one of the reasons I came, is I knew of one particular client that we actually walked away from. And then while I've been at ThoughtWorks, I know of another. Where even if we don't walk away from the client, we may not work on certain things at the client if we think it contributes to something that we think completely goes, you know, against something that we just strongly oppose. And that actually made a very large client of ours that we had for a while. It made a very tenuous relationship that we actually lost for a while because we had to say no. But it gets tough because that huge retailer I talked about, we have people that join ThoughtWorks, and right, some are very, 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 very like, almost like PETA, right? They're like anti anything animal products, whatever. And this retailer actually, they make leather belts, and you know, and they're like, I refuse to work there. And so we do have people that we have to negotiate those waters as well. It gets tough when you are anti-everything. But, and I tell people, if you feel that strongly, you might not want to work at ThoughtWorks, because there's only so much we can sort of work around versus we can't work around every, I mean, we're a business that runs our model off of working for other companies and charging them for it. So if we like dissected everything that they did, we would work for no one, because there's not a single company that is a global standard that does everything well. At least I've never seen them. If y'all know of one, let me know. That actually makes money.
Yeah, I mean, we're forced to work within a capitalist structure
Right.
in order to work to, you know, try to adjust the results of that capital structure.
Yes.
Sorry. I completely forgot the question I wanted to ask. Oh no, it comes back now. Sorry, sometimes I
About the foreign offices?
No.
Not yet?
Actually, it's
Okay.
a different one. I know you guys remember that one.
Okay.
It's about the project you were talking about earlier about the fake medical products in Uganda, I think.
It was
In
in
Africa as a whole.
In Africa as a whole. Okay.
Yeah.
How did that come across then? I mean, did somebody hire you for that? Do you work for governments or non-profit organizations? I mean, that doesn't seem to be a brief from a industry client, or was it? Am I wrong?
No, it's not. I mean, the point is that, you know, we work in certain industries, but we also are concerned about what's happening in the world and in different parts of the world. And we figure out, or we find out through various sources that, you know, okay, what happens if you know that 60% of the pharmaceutical products that are sold in Africa are fake? And then, we, particularly our founder, has his ear to the ground and is connected to a lot of people and knows people who are interested in trying to solve or to combat those sorts of things. So we hear about those things, and we have more recently actually institutionalized within a specific department in the company a group of people who are responsible for looking and trying to figure out what projects should we focus on that would help us, make some positive social justice impact in the world. And that's when we have to decide, well, we're going to spend our resources working on, the project to allow people to know that they've got legitimate medicine, as opposed to a project for making open source free software for medical record service or medical record system or something like that.
We did both, by the way.
Yeah, we were involved in both.
So some come to us, some we hear about, some we go sniffing for, and why we now have a group that focuses on go find out who's doing this, and then let's see who we can partner with. And what we try, obviously, if it's a company that's looking to make money off of it in some way and we can contribute and they can pay us, we always go that route. But we also have set aside a part of our business to do work, not to look to make money off of it as well. Now, people, and I always say this, people who come work in this program, that's not the work that they typically do. That's not the work we do. Once in a blue moon, once in a very, very blue moon, do you get that opportunity. Because a lot of the work we're doing right now is in the global south. And so rarely are we focusing a lot on stuff in North America. Yeah.
Would you say that I'm hearing these conversations about sort of maybe the ethical decisions or the ethical problems that you've encountered with former clients, and I'm hearing this, seeking out projects. Would you say that your company culture is one that would promote people sort of coming forward, airing grievances, airing, sort of brainstorming projects that are important to them, in line with the kind of values, that intend to make money, but at the same time, like addressing these sort of social justice concerns? And is there a culture in the company for people at various levels of the hierarchy to put those things out there and be part of that?
There is a culture to put it out there. Sometimes I think it's too much. Because I think that part of it's how you say it and what you say, and then are you trying to have discourse, or are you just trying to just throw grenades? I always say that when people put things out there, are you really trying to have a discourse? Are you really trying to solve a problem? Or are you just trying to get on top of a box and start preaching? Because there are some people in the firm, I say that a lot. I say, it sounds great, but what are you going to do? So what's the action? Because we can talk all day long about the plights of the world, but what are we going to do? So there's a whole culture there to talk. But we do have a culture that's built off of people, not only as we work on our own, it's expected that we actually find little side projects on our own, and we actually go and contribute. And I know in Chicago we have a whole group of people that go and work on things to sort of help in different communities and different areas where they want. This very specific group we talk about is the group that people sort of send initiatives to say, hey, here's something I've become aware of. Maybe this is something we might want to put light on. And then there's conversations about it, about why we may focus on that now versus others. But there's a place to have that. Obviously, not everybody can get everything they want.
Right. Biggest problem is there are more ills in the world than we have resources to solve. So we have to prioritize. And we probably have, there are going to be lots of, your individual voice. And actually, I'll just give a specific example. I mean, I have a particular local pet project in Bangalore, India that I was hoping the company would focus on, but it was a local, it was a local project. It was a local school trying to help kids come out of the slums and, get out of the poverty cycle that their families were in. But it was hard getting, the company really didn't devote resources to it at a corporate level because it wasn't, it wasn't a large enough thing to have a more global impact, like some of the things that we were working on in Africa, for example.
But what we
turns out, I'm in a position now where I run 2 teams, and I've gotten one of my teams to actually devote 10% of their time working for this school in Bangalore. So
you get
I was
higher
able to
positions.
get around that.
So
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, I'm not. I heard nothing because I do the same thing. When you get in higher positions, there are things you can do and just go, nobody pays. So, but for example, the local offices, right? So our local offices, we like you. It's not only our space, but like what we do is like people who do side projects or things, they can use those spaces like after hours, or they can use the local offices and they bring people in. I know in San Francisco, there's a huge movement there. They deal with a lot of the gentrification that's happening in San Francisco, because if anybody's ever been to San Francisco and you've seen that city has become more and more expensive, and basically they're pushing everybody that can't make six-figure salaries out. And so there's a huge move to try to stop that. And there's a group of people there that actually meet, and they're actively, and the office helps support them to do meetups and do really, try to figure and strategize on how to address that. So from the local areas, we do help try to provide that, but it's work on top of your work, right? It's not a, hey, we're gonna like fund you to go do a project. We just don't do that. So did that answer that? Okay. What else? Good questions. I like good questions.
You mentioned like the partner system, right? Like sort of pairing up 2 people to work on different things. And how do you go about pairing up people? Is it by personality? Is it by complementing strengths? Is it, similar backgrounds or different backgrounds? And
Just roll a dice. It's complicated, right? So it's because you're talking about in North America we have how many people? 12.
In North America?
Yeah.
500 to 600?
500 to 600 people in North America. Imagine we 3,000 people. So just in North America alone, you have like 500 people running around that you're trying to get to know. You have to figure out like who works well, right, and what their skill sets, and what do they want to work on. And different people have different, and you don't want somebody from San Francisco to have to travel all the way from New York to New York, right? So there's geographics that are involved. There's people. So what we try to do is really try to pair up people where we think they'll be complementary to each other. It's so many factors, right? So it's a lot of conversations to figure out. Or we'll talk to the project team and say, okay, hey, we're bringing in these people. This is what they do. Maybe we need to rethink how we organize this project, that's why you take project teams and you let them collaborate to figure out how, because they're going to bring in their own different skill sets, and just because we thought this was the ideal project team, now we have real people, and the real people have to figure out how to make real stuff work. And so we try the best we can, and sometimes we only know the best we can by learning, by putting them together, and then we go, oh no, they can never ever work together. Because there are certain people that just are, was it oil and water? Or oil and, yeah. I don't know why I always want to say oil and vinegar, I don't know. Because I put that on salads. But there's just certain people that, as much as I say we're people, company, whatever, certain people just rub you the wrong way, right? The way they work is just, there are certain people in our company that are just extremely, extremely energetic, and other people that are just very even kill. And sometimes putting those 2 people in a room is just wrong. They don't, instead of feeding off of their energy, they just become combative. And they're great workers, they just suck at working together. So we do a lot. So in staffing calls, I have 3 different staffing calls I have to be a part of. I do a staffing call for the West, for Central, and for the East. And the way it's not like we talk about people that work out of the West, we talk about the projects in the West. And then we have to go through and then talk about who do we think. And that takes a lot of like knowing all 500 people. Now, all I have to know is 125. And trust me right now, if you told me to name 10, I don't know. Like my head might start spinning, but it's hard to even know the 125 that I have. Imagine now taking all of them, and it's interesting. I have to say, like, when you pull back and you look at it, it's interesting seeing the dynamics of how these companies work and just how you make this stuff. I always call it make the magic happen, because it all seems to work, but it's a complex system. Did you have a question?
I have a question,
Yes.
yeah. So after the ThoughtWorks University, how much say do trainees have in where they're going to be positioned, like what office they're going to work out of?
So you will know your office before you even start.
Okay, it's
So
already been assigned to
it's
you.
well, we ask in the beginning. So in the
When
beginning,
we hire,
when we
know
hire
where
you,
we need people.
yeah.
Okay.
So
we're
we'll
always
say,
gonna
yeah.
say, you know, we're not gonna hire anybody in Atlanta if we don't need people in
Right.
Atlanta.
So here's how I like to the truth of it. We start recruiting. I actually my team, because I do the hiring, right? So my recruiting team right now is meeting offsite this week to come up with their recruiting plan. Late August we start recruiting, and we start from August all the way to like March of next year. Early on in the process, the more choices you have, because we have slots everywhere. The later on in the process, we have slots and we need to fill them for very specific locations. So early on, you have lots of choices. And I think this in interview world in general. If you ever like going through school and you interview early on in the interview cycles for any company or anywhere in the industries, you have more choices early on and you have less later. That's just the reality of it. So I don't like telling people you can pick anything, because it's really about the demand, and it's about, as much as we say we fly people around, we don't want to fly people all over. I don't want someone that lives in California to have to fly all the way to Ohio if possible. So we try to make sure we put people in the areas where we are going to have business, so that we do as much as we make the travel not so intensive. People travel, but I'd rather you be on a plane for for 2 hours than for 4 and 5 and go across time zones. But there have been people who join and they really want to go to a different office, and we will negotiate. But those are exceptions, and they have to be compelling. Someone. So here's an example. I got to tell you this story. So I had someone, they went to TWU, right, and they started off in New York. They started off in Chicago. Had to move to New York. Got a divorce. Their kid was in New York, so they need to be closer to their kid. Transfer them to New York. Went to TWU. Met this young woman at TWU who was from London. They fell in love. Had to move to London. And I said, no. So then they secretly got married. That forced us to send them to London.
Well, technically didn't force you, but probably.
I would have been a big asshole. So in general, so now my new speech when people come and they're about to go to TWU, you're grown people. You can do whatever you want to. I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't do. But if you fall in love, you need to be ready for long distance relationships.
I'm just curious, if you go on and get apply for teaching positions, how much control do you feel you'll have over where you end up?
Well, not much, which is why, for those of us who geography is more of a concern, it's a good question to ask.
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid point. So when I remember, my wife is also a PhD, so we were both looking for jobs at the same time in humanities. She's in German, I was in philosophy, and we had no control, zero. Zero control.
I'm so scared. I mean, tech's the hot thing right now. You have lots of control where you go, just because sort of. Even with tech, right, there's certain markets that really kind of support it. Or you pick a place and you're kind of stuck there if you don't go to a city or an area that really has a nice tech market, because it's just that one company. I'm thinking of one of our clients in particular. Is that one company, everybody just works there, and you're kind of stuck unless you want to ever leave and go to a different city, because there's no market. I think even in tech, right, I always tell people, be smart. Well, we only put offices in places where we think there's a market anyway, because we have to find great people. And so, but I was like, yeah, try to think about like where you want to work and what are your constraints that you want. And if the location is, I want to go there, and even if I find a new job, I don't want to go to a different city. Am I going someplace that's going to offer me those options? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the application timeline and how often what's your recruitment like and how big are like the cohorts that go to the university?
Our time, oh my God, what's our timeline? Timeline can be a 5-week to 2-month process.
I mean, from the initial,
from initial application to the moment
hiring?
to hiring.
Is it a specific time of the year or is it like kind of?
So we're hiring consistently, right? But for AC programs, I'm specifically speaking, because the AC program, it's all about trying to get people entry in. At the same time, our TWU has a capacity, so they can only take so many people time of year, and then they kind of shut down. So we have to hire to sort of meet that, as well as we have to hire for the market. So it's like, okay, at certain points of time, it makes absolutely no sense to hire around those times because people come in and we have no work because that's when the market. So we generally try to start, so we start the process, let's say officially, start September. Because it's end of August, but let's say September. And right now, I've been hiring all the way up to just this month. And that was only because we changed some of our numbers, right? There was an increase that was asked. And so there was some additional people. But rarely, usually by March, we're done. We're done in the AC program. We've already, and then we have people that start in the AC program starting in January. So we have all the way through until September. So then start dates are like, the first quarter, and then usually the second quarter, not a lot of traffic, and then right in the third quarter. So June and July July and August are our largest, groups of new hires. So, but we're about to start hiring. Actually, the funny thing is, even though we haven't officially started hiring for 2016, I already have 2 people already hired for 2016. Because they went through our 2015 process. We had pretty much reached our capacity for those. And we said, we really do want to hire you. We just can't hire you now. Would you be interested? And they said yes. So I already met 2, so I'm already ahead. So we actually have 2 hires already for 2016.
So, how competitive is it? How big is the cohort and how many applications are you?
Oh my God, I forget the number. I wish I knew the number off the top of my head. It's very competitive. I'm not gonna, by the time you get to coming into an in-office interview, we only extend offers to 50% of those that make it even to that part in the process. Which we would obviously like to do more. We'd actually wish by the time you got to the office, we felt more comfortable with you. So we're actually looking at our process to see if we can do screenings better so that your hopes aren't too up, like, oh, we paid for you to come to Chicago if you don't live in Chicago. We paid for you to come to Chicago and we spent all this time. And then, so with the applicants, I don't know our numbers. I know that we get thousands. So,
just like academia.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Can you talk about what's the ratio between undergrads and graduate and people applying with PhDs?
If I knew off the top of my head, I would tell you, but I have no idea.
Like a feeling? If you
I mean, the ratio of grads to undergrads is, I would say, you have, like, if I said percent, I wouldn't even say ratio. I mean, you may have 5% grads, right? It's a really small number. Because let's be honest, like, most people that are going to graduate programs, and especially that's not in technology, this is really not the industry most are going to come to, right? This is others. This is people that sort of have this interest that's slightly different from most. And so most people aren't coming straight out of grad schools to come into this type of industry for consulting. So we don't have as many even show that much of an interest. So in the scheme of things, there's still a lot, but not, because it's different and it's not really for many what they even thought of or why they went into what they thought they were going to go into the grad programs for. So.
Do you have an interest? I mean, would you think about, in terms of looking at who's gone through the program and who's had success, are you interested in people with graduate degrees or expanding that?
So yes, because I've been talking this year about, as we get more, if we can get more through, even sort of rethinking the program to look at then how would that support that as well. It's just hard when you don't have enough to, like, I don't want to get ahead of it until I know what works and what doesn't work. That's what we do. We don't overplan, overthink until we actually know and we actually see it. And so for me, what I like about people that come in with grads is I like the level of maturity too. And part of consulting is a lot of maturity in how we deal with our clients. And I have found that people that do come in with advanced degrees have a larger level of maturity and are easier to put in front of clients from that perspective. Now, counter to that, some of them, even people with experience, come in and don't realize this is as much, they conceptually understand it's a different company and don't really believe it really is a different company. And when they come in and you really need them to start really changing, it's hard for them to realize they have to change. And it's hard for them to get out that someone telling you you have to change doesn't mean you're less than. And to sort of take that personal out of it and just realizing that's part of the process and that's part of coming to work for us is changing. Because if you're not ready to change, this is not the place for you. But yeah, I want to start exploring that even more because we have to look at that. We're looking at new models now, and we're starting to we're trying to rethink some of the different programs we have and how we sort of hire in. And so we're trying to look at some different models. Another model we're trying to look at, and I want to be very careful about saying this, is right now we're a heavily, heavily, heavily travel-intensive company when you're part of professional services. We know for a lot of people, the reason why some of the people turn away from us in the process is when they start to hear more about it and they really wrap their heads around it because we really try to explain it to you. They don't want to do that. And so we're looking at different ways to do what we do and not have the travel be a component to it. But that also requires our clients.
Right, because our clients are the ones who are insisting that we actually work at their sites typically, and that's really hard to negotiate otherwise with them if they insist. It's basically a matter of do we do business or not. So, yeah.
Seems like a great problem for a technology-focused, innovative company to work on.
I love the way you said that because I said the same thing and then I roll my eyes. I used to work for Accenture. So, and I always thought, and ThoughtWorks is the same way in some ways. And I think this are almost any company. Companies that tend to go out and tell, and it's actually, if you go meet like a psychologist, right? Psychologist, psychiatrist. I have a few friends that are psychologists. They're really good at giving people advice and telling them what to do, and really bad at doing their own. Even companies like what we tell our clients to do, and we're really good at like the direction, but what we need to do is be a little bit, turn that internal. But all the people that are really good at that, we have them out. We hire them and they're out doing that, right? And so it's like, how do we take some of those people, like what they did with me, right? They took me out of professional services and put me in this role so that I could take the things that I learned and bring it back in. And that's what we've been doing with a lot of our operations groups, is so that we can try to get the innovation back in and sort of get us to propel and figure us out. But to do that, we have to invest in ourselves and take the people that are out there making us money and say, okay, I'm going to bring you in so you help us make money, but by helping us internally. So, but who knows? I say this and then y'all hit me up in 2 months and I'm like, oh, I'm back on projects.
Yeah, I just had a question. Whenever you said that your clients insist that you work on site, does that mean like periodic or regular site visits, or does that mean you're stationed there for like 2 to 3 months while you're working?
So I worked in professional services for my first 7 years in the company, and the epitome of this was a project I was on in Madison, Wisconsin, where I would have to be on the road. I would drive up on early Monday morning. I'd be on the road at 6 a.m. and I would be driving back home on Friday evening, and that was for 9 straight months. Now, in that case, we were able to convince the client to allow us to work here in Chicago most of the time, the devs. I was a business analyst, and so we were the ones who had to be, face-to-face with the client more frequently. So then typically after that, I would go back every other week and spend some time there. But on many of our projects, people are traveling either 4 or 5 days a week for long, long periods of time. Some of our projects are multi-year. Some are a few months. Some are many months, but it's all over. But travel is it's something that ultimately we try to negotiate, and there's a lot of pressure from all of the employees in the company, for ThoughtWorks to say, come on, get me some business so I can, locally, so I can go home at night and sleep in my own bed. Big pressure, and everybody is pushing the company to do that, and we try our best to do that. But sometimes, we get really good deals or really good projects that are technically very interesting, and we really, we would be making a big contribution, or it would be something really big for the company in general. And it's in, I won't name names, but it's in some suburb of Cincinnati.
Which I was there.
Yeah. Or, Des Moines, or...
it was in Houston for a year.
Yeah.
Even though I'm from Houston, so it's actually a plus in a way,
Right.
But so certain, 2 or 3 month projects. Typically, most of our deals are 6 months to multi-year, 6 months to a year. Usually, so what we typically try to do, especially in the AC program, is I don't want people on one engagement for more than a year. I work to rotate them off, because really those first 2 years, I want a breadth or variety of experience. Only time I have renegotiated that at a particular client is if we truly do, the client is so large and we really have like massively different types of work. So going from one thing to something else was a complete different experience. Different people they work with, different area of the industry. And it's sort of like, and they've asked, like I've actually had someone ask to stay at a client because the experience they were getting was just phenomenal, and they didn't want to go be placed someplace else when they had this opportunity that they were very sure of. But in general, we try to, like, usually after about 6 months, I'll start looking and say, can we move them on? Unless I really think it's something that's sort of phenomenal. Now, sometimes the projects will fight back too and say, we've invested in them, they're new, we want some of our return for investment. So those become negotiated. The average lifespan on a project at ThoughtWorks, again, most people go for a project for 6 months, at least 6 to 9 months. There are different things, so it depends, right? Certain things we go in and you're the first wave. So the first wave might be there for 8 weeks or 2 months, because the first wave is all about building a relationship with that client, getting, understanding what they do, sort of figuring out these high-level conceptual solutions, and then the delivery team comes. And then sometimes you're part of the delivery team, which usually is longer. And then some projects are just a few weeks. I was on one project in Austin for 8 weeks, and I so wanted to stay. I was trying to sell them more stuff. It was sometimes when you get those great cities and the client is in a great space, you're like, oh my God, I want to work with them forever. But that doesn't always happen. Or like there's New York projects, and everybody wants to go to a New York project, but usually New York projects are only for people in New York, because most companies in New York don't want to pay people to fly there, because it's not even the flights that's expensive. The actual putting them into hotels and corporate apartments are just, astronomical. So it's funny, like depending on where the project is, depends on sometimes how people are interested. No matter how fantastic it is from a technical perspective or innovation, it's like, oh, where's that? Oh no. And then I tell people, especially in the AC program, you really don't have a choice. I tell them, I said, we are not a travel agency.
We had a project in Paris about a year ago, and You know, we would make fun of the people going there saying, oh, it must be really tough having to spend your weeks in Paris, you know? And it turned out to be a really bad client, and they really didn't like working there, but it was Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a two-part question because of your goal to increase women in technology in your office, and also all the travel that you're talking about. We visited, or we had a speaker who was working with moms and entrepreneurs. And I'm wondering, what does maternal and paternal leave look like in this company? And what does family support look like generally?
So I forget what the...
Depends on which country you're
Yeah.
working in. If you're in the UK or in Germany, it's wonderful. You get like 6 months paid. The other 6 months is half pay, and you're guaranteed your position when you get... Basically, we follow, around the world, we follow maternity, paternity, I guess, guidelines for those specific countries. So in the US, we have the crappy, you know, 6, whatever it is.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
6 weeks,
or
I think, paid.
8 weeks.
6 or 8 weeks, I think it's.
But we have maternity and paternity.
Right.
So we don't just do maternity. And then for like in the office, I mean, we have the standard stuff. Like in the office, you have like the mother's room. For like I have someone in the program right now who just had a child, and so I really, even though she's open, I mean, she has to understand like the travel component. And I said, you know, you made your life choice, you know, but I'm really trying very hard to make it so that she doesn't travel. She's open to it. She's, I don't know why she's open to it, but she's open to it. But I'm really trying to make sure that we do the right thing for her as well. So we try to do the right thing. So we take those things into consideration as well.
But it's difficult.
It's difficult.
It is very difficult, and you know we're never satisfied with where we're at.
Yeah, we're constantly looking at our benefits, and last year there was last year or the year before? Last year was a huge hoopla and sort of getting us to sort of step up and do a little bit more around transgender. And really look at our insurance and how we did that, and how do we deal with people who are going through transitions, and for such a thought leaders, you know, it really challenged us to figure out like what were we doing and were we really, you know, there. And so we've changed our policies there, and we've done a lot more around that, did more in our own internal research and making sure that we did the right things, and started participating more in, there's like huge like groups out there where you can go and you can hire people, you know, trans people in tech, and making sure we went out, not just saying, hey, we have people that are trans, but we actually go out and we actually hire people. But we also make sure our benefits actually help. Because what's the point of hiring somebody if when the moment they have a health problem, then they can't even afford to even work there. So our benefits are pretty good, I have to say. Because it's funny how I never used to care about benefits. You know, I used to roll my eyes when I remember my first job, and they're like, oh, here's your salary and here's your benefits. And I'm like, okay, you can put that little magic number all you want to, but my salary is all I care about. And it's not until later that I realized, like, you know, I think in our healthcare system here, we don't spend a lot of time talking to people about preventative. And people don't understand the cost of health. The reason it's so high is because people don't do the preventative things ahead of time. So I yell at people in my program. I'm like, when was the last time you went to a dentist? When was the last time you got a checkup? Well, I used to be a football player. I'm like, really?
All the more reason.
as you're eating that Snickers bar, I'm like, you need to go to a doctor. And we have great health care, and you should use it. This is a privilege. There are people who don't. And so we have I think from that perspective, we actually do quite well.
Who does that kind of internal research? Do you have people dedicated to asking those questions? Can you tell us about that?
We have a whole people's benefits group, and we have a benefits council too. So not only do we have the benefits, the people group that really is going out looking at the market, they do every year market analysis research to see how we're doing with our competitors and the market in general, just to make sure that even though we think we might be above bar or doing well, maybe we're not. Because you still have to be competitive in the marketplace when you hire people, because people do compare their benefits to other companies. I mean, there are certain benefits there are certain tech companies that just offer things that are just, I even roll my eyes. I'm like, really? And do you really use that? Like they offer these crazy benefits that we just won't, right?
Well, we used to, too.
Well, we use.
So I started in the company in 2000, and this was when the tech boom hadn't quite crashed yet. It was right before the internet crash. But we were working here in the Chicago office on a big project. We would have, the kitchen would full of all sorts of snacks, free all the time, of course. But about every month, they would bring in masseuses to give.
Remember those?
Yeah, remember those? Were you around when the Ben and Jerry's cart went around the office? That sort of stuff. But those days are gone.
Snacks in the kitchen?
What?
Depends on the office.
Oh, yeah, it depends on the office. Chicago has gotten to be really healthy, and now we have fruit and soft drinks and caffeine.
Yeah. Certain offices depend on the size, and Chicago tends to have a lot of projects that involve our clients in, and so they just gobble up. It's like, okay, they were consuming way more than we could produce and put them in. I'm talking, some companies have like personal chefs. They have like on-site chefs that make their lunch for them because they don't want you to leave, right? And I want you to get the hell out of the building. Go to lunch, go interact. I don't want you to stay in, but they want to, and so they offer these like weird little benefits.
Right, so we're not Google.
We're not Google. Yeah, Google has, it sounds cool. I'm like, ooh, that sounds cool. But I've had friends that left Google, and so I have a little bit of insight on some of this stuff, but it's still cool. So we have a benefits council, and so part of that is, it's great that you have this group and they sit, but right, they're not sitting out with the rest of professional services. They're not out with the people every day talking to everyone. So we do have people that actually are part of the business that sit on this council that actually sort of feed them information, and we sort of talk about. And so every year we look at our benefits, and there's new ideas that we sort of put out there to say, can we think about this? Is this something we might want to explore? And then they sort of ponder it, and then we go through a process, and the new policies get born. Whoa. Yeah.
I want to restate your question, Ian, because I think I kind of understand what you're aiming. Yeah, is there a place for humanities PhDs and their research skills on the Benefits Council?
Oh, I'm sure. I don't.
Benefits Council?
Or in the Benefits Department.
In that area?
Kind of what you were aiming at, like the research end, is that something humanities PhDs would be valued in?
I could see, especially in our people's, maybe you would know this better than me. I could be
I would
stretching
say not
and say,
particularly.
It might yawn.
If you're asking, is there a particular place in the company where a humanities grad student or PhD would fit best at an already existing position, I really can't think of any one particular one. That said, I go back and say, the skills that you have being PhD candidates fit a lot of the work we do. And I am no longer in the professional service part of the company. I'm in the internal IT group, and I'm responsible for all the internal financial applications. I've had to come to terms with making brain cells available for understanding financial accounting and all that sort of stuff, which I never wanted to do when I was studying Plato and Nietzsche. But it's part of what you do. If you're capable of thinking and problem solving, those are skills that are pretty much used in every part of the company.
Greg, could you, I don't think you've done this yet, but talk a little bit, like how did you get from a PhD in philosophy to...
How did I get from a PhD in philosophy
to working at thought, like sort of what does that look like, that journey, your journey?
Okay.
Someone's like, come on, just like, we kidnapped him.
No, so just a couple, quick biography. BA from Yale, MA from Northwestern, PhD from Penn State, all in philosophy. I got my PhD in '87, taught from '88 to year 2000, got tenure at the University of South Dakota in 1995. My wife is also a PhD, so we were an academic couple in search of joint academic positions in the same place. And, you know, when around in the late 1990s, as we had 3 children and they were getting older and we were in this really small town in South Dakota, even though we had, and my wife had a half-time academic position, I had a full-time one, even though we had those, we felt like we were missing out and we were actually probably not giving our children exposure to what they really should have exposure to. So we decided to ditch academia and get jobs in the business world. Now, I personally had been a tech-friendly guy since college, and it actually funded a lot of my graduate education by working the help desk at the computer center at Penn State. So it wasn't hard so I knew that that's where I wanted to look. But I also knew that the entire, and actually after college, I'd worked for 3 years before going back to graduate school as a developer in old languages that no longer exist. And I knew that, you know, all of that had passed me by and there was no chance I was going to be or wanted to be a developer. So I started asking around and discovered that, lo and behold, there were these positions in IT companies called business analysts, and they're primarily responsible for working with customers and being able to communicate with the geeks. With the developers. And that was a role that didn't require somebody to know how to do object-oriented programming or things like that. So I had enough experience, building my own websites for, online teaching that I was doing while I was still a professor, as well as I did a little bit of reading up and got some of the up-to-date lingo before I actually applied to ThoughtWorks. That was also the time when integrated systems like SAP were big, so I didn't know if that would be a way for me to go in terms of consulting. So I actually sat in on some courses at the local business school that had an agreement with SAP, and they were teaching the students to learn how to use SAP before they sent them out in the business world. So I did a few things like that, asked around. Turns out one of my students who had graduated a couple years earlier with a joint philosophy computer science degree had gotten a job with ThoughtWorks here in Chicago. And I just asked him for advice about, jobs in IT, and he was the one who hooked me up and suggested I apply at ThoughtWorks. So I applied, and they hired me, and we all moved to Chicago, and I've been here ever since. And inside the company, as I said, the first 7 years I was working as a business analyst, project manager. I also did quality assurance work. I did not do any development in various positions. And then I too and my family got sort of tired of my being on the road a lot. So I had the opportunity to move into the internal IT group that runs all of our own internal applications, and that at the time required less travel. And I've been doing jobs in that area ever since, in one capacity or another.
It's a pretty cool journey.
So that's the journey. Yeah.
I heard with consulting firms in general that there's a high turnover rate. Is that true with this company also?
I don't think it's high. I mean, it's I gotta sit down, sort of. It's driving me crazy. Oh.
If you think about it,
yeah.
The travel really is hard once you start having more and more connections and responsibilities. Once you get married, once you have children, all of those things make it really, make it harder and harder to be traveling and on the road all the time. And we try, and we're constantly faced with that because we often get people starting in the company at younger ages when they're single, and they think, "Oh, travel, that's so cool, man." And then they get in the plane and they're in hotel rooms, and after about the second or third month, it gets, to be pretty rotten because, you're not home to be able to spend time to make friends in where you live and everything else. And then it gets worse when you have a significant other and you're not seeing them other than via Skype or some other video conferencing system every night. And then when you have kids, I don't know how many of you do have kids or how many of you have significant others, but it's difficult if you're not physically present a lot. So again, I mean, we try as best we can to fit people in different offices where we have work, and that's part of what drives how we decide who to hire in which place when. And we are constantly trying to work with our clients to get as much of that work local for where our people are actually living so they can spend some time at home. But it is difficult because, in some cases, you ultimately have to decide, either I sign this contract with this client and we can make money so we can do these other wonderful things that we want to do in the world, and we're going to have to send our people off 5 days or 4 days every week for 6 months in order for us to do that work. Or we don't sign it. And then we don't have that income. And you're sitting on what we call the beach, which is you're doing nothing.
I mean, honestly, we looked at the numbers. On average, people stay 3 to 5 years before they, and you hear that it's a national average. Most people stay in jobs these days 3 to 5 years. And we tend to be averaging around that as well. It sucks because we want to keep people longer, right? It sucks because, you want to keep experienced people, and as you learn things, you want to just, but unfortunately the world we live in people are just not doing that. And we're trying to find different models to see if that works, but we do find that people just get antsy and they just want to do something different. And it's kind of hard to get out that mindset when you just want to do something different. And they just get tired of going to the same company. Even though you see different people, you still, that same company, the same logo, same title, name. I want to have another company's name on my resume. And you can't really combat that. I mean, we have some really cool things if you stay. Like we do these sabbaticals, like every 10, then 15, then 20. And then you're able to, is it 3 months?
After 10 years, it's 3 months, paid leave.
Just go do
After
whatever.
15 years, it's 6 weeks. And then every 5 years after that, it's 6 weeks off
6 weeks.
at full pay.
Just to go
Do whatever you want
do
to do.
something.
Is the 3 to 5 years, does that include the TWU, or is that,
And it's just average. It's just, people just, after TWU, and I again, honestly, like, you go to TWU, you come work at ThoughtWorks, you get all this great experience. Most people work for large companies and don't get the exposure to industries and things you get in consulting in general. And that's in consulting in general. That's why most people can go into consulting. I remember after working at Accenture, it's like people just tell you, people just all want you. And it's you making that decision of, do you jump out early or do you take time to keep learning more? But your marketability becomes huge because you get to meet and see people in companies that these people work in companies barely get to even say hello to, right? You get exposure to just the inner workings of a company from so many different levels where most people are just getting this level of visibility. And so your knowledge just expands exponentially compared to most people in the jobs that they do, just because of the way we work. And that's in consulting in general, not a ThoughtWorks thing. In real, okay, so here's my other I always like to do these little special things. It's me. Some companies call themselves consulting firms and they are not. They are contract firms, they send you out for hire. They're not consulting firms. To me, a consulting firm is when you're coming in because you bring some level of expertise and you're helping someone solve problems and you're talking to them and you're understanding their business. You're not just being dropped into a seat to just do something, right? Certain firms will call themselves consulting firms and all they are just, I call them people, what do we call them when clients? Body shops, right? And there are some. None of them are the big ones, right? So any of the what people call the big, I don't know, the big four now, I don't know. The number has changed. It used to be the big six, and now I think it's the big four. So you think like the Accentures and the PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, those are consulting firms. And then you have some others that call themselves consulting firms that just, if you are interested in consulting and it's not about ThoughtWorks, do your research on what that firm is and what do they really do. Because some people can call themselves that and not, it's very deceptive.
I have a question for Greg specifically. So, insofar as you did have a kind of whole academic career before joining ThoughtWorks, I guess I have two related questions, but they may be two sides of the same coin. So, are there particular things that you actually miss a lot about academia, and what are those? And on the flip side, are there things that you see as particularly preparing you to do your job at ThoughtWorks in a good way or in a special way? I guess on a very concrete level. Are there things about your philosophy, academic background that prepare you to do what you're doing?
All right, so what do I miss about academia? Probably only one thing, and that is sort of the flexibility over my time, or the control over the flexibility of my time that I had in academia. I get no summers off, and you know, this is America, so vacation is America vacation, which isn't that much. If you work for our offices in the UK and Germany, you get European vacation, so that's great. So that's the only thing I miss. I don't miss, well, I won't go through that. I mean, and I do have to say, I mean, remember that I ended up at you know, not a first-tier university. There wasn't a graduate program there at all, so I was teaching undergrads all the time. And it was, you know, out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know if you've been to Vermillion, South Dakota before, but it's a town of maybe 7,000 people and the students are there. And it's sort of in the middle of nowhere, and there are sort of limited opportunities there. So, you know, those were incentives for me to, you know, not only leave academia, but also to leave the prairie and come back to a larger city as well. So that's the only thing I miss. In terms of what prepared me most, so I was also involved, I mean, as many of you would be in academia, in other sort of operational or what they would call service things. I was directing the honors program at the University of South Dakota for a couple of years. I was chairman of the faculty senate, so I was working with the president and that sort of stuff. That sort of experience helps a lot. If you're part of that, to learn how to, particularly in terms of the honors program, learn how to speak and motivate other younger people, in this case students, learn how to deal with other peers in groups and running groups. Running a faculty senate is not easy. Dealing with differences with the president and with people in power. All of those sorts of things are important. But in terms of grading papers, or particularly if you come into tech, just be prepared to give up your desire to see perfect English everywhere. Because if you insist on it, you will be laughed at. And in fact, you know, if you reveal that you have a PhD or you almost had a PhD, you might be laughed at as well. There's a certain, yeah. But that's part of the business world, I think, in general.
Why is that?
Why is that?
That people
I mean,
can't
that's
write?
Come on.
Because I gotta say, I know. I was gonna say this all the time. Like whenever people write, I'm like, "Did you go to college?" I don't understand this, but anyway, I know what you mean.
No, I mean, why did George McGovern not reveal the fact that he had a PhD when he ran for president? Come on, this is America, man. There's a basic That's, I think it's part of the sort of view of privilege that if you know, if you're, and also if you're smart. I mean, people don't like, oftentimes don't like people, you know, who are smarter than they are, or if they feel like they are.
But I think there's also an attitude.
But it exists in the business world very clearly.
I think there's also an attitude that we've picked up on in some of these conversations that it might actually be a lot like seen as a liability in some ways, not just like, oh, you're,
yeah,
you think you're smart.
Yeah, you're an ivory tower sort of guy or person. You don't care about real world solutions, and you know, making things. You're more, and again, I don't want to pick on the most current academic trend or a fad, but back in my day, it was all the postmodernism stuff of being able to out Derrida, and you know.
Still that.
Yeah. You know, if you were to try to talk with somebody in business about that, they would just, you know, look at you and with a blank stare and say, you know, what do you think? What are you spending your time doing? And is it making you any money, or is it, you know, is it solving anybody's problem?
Yeah, I haven't seen in the conversations at ThoughtWorks, like amongst peers, where that comes into a lot of conversation. Like I've never seen someone go, oh, where I've seen, and I brought that up earlier, where I've seen is that people who come in with PhDs or some type of experience where they're transitioning over, knowing that they're coming into an entry-level program, it's for them to sort of wrap their heads around it, because there's their own perception of, I'm at this level, and now you're putting me at this level. And to me, it's them. It has nothing to do with us. It's you are coming in entry level. You don't know any of this stuff, and we have to teach you. And unfortunately, there's some of the components of it that are speaking to people that are truly entry, where you do have some of the points, right, that they don't have. And you have to learn, and I tell this to adults in general, you have to learn how when there's a conversation, they're being spoke to a room full of people, not everything is being spoken to you. And I have found issues with people that are sort of advanced degrees where they don't do that. They don't, that's the one thing the maturity they are missing, I have found, maybe that's not in this room, but I have found that they are personalizing things that have nothing to do with them. And they don't realize when you're talking, again, I'm making a general statement that doesn't always fit to that one individual. And you have to understand that and accept that and say, that's not to me, and just move on. But usually when it comes to like then putting on projects and doing the work, people are fascinated. At ThoughtWorks, oh my God, you come with some degree and some people are just become fascinated with you. They want to learn more. They want you to tell them more about it. We'll do like lunch and learns and have you tell us. And we do, like on my projects, we used to have, before I did this, I used to manage projects and accounts. We'd have like what we call Learning Thursdays. And literally you can come in and talk about anything. And we'd have people come in and talk about traveling around the world, or people would come in and talk about some philosophy that they knew about, that they had a passion about. And people would just sit there, because for us, it's really about learning and knowing new things. And if you come with a PhD, just realize that means you know a lot and people want to know what you know. And so in some ways, it's great. And you come in and people want. And they want you to apply that, and they want you to use that, and they want to see how we can use what you know to make things better. But what I found, that's the message, was when you go to the TWU, I have found that people that come in that are doing switching, right? Context switching, they have a problem with that transition. And that's an individual thing. That's not a ThoughtWorks issue. I found they have that issue.
I'm kind of piggyback what you were asking about what skills transferred. Did the actual methodology in philosophy help you out? Conceptualizing problems in a different way, looking at marginalized solutions that are maybe dismissed, those type of skills that we kind of pride ourselves in having.
Yeah, so particularly in terms of, being, building software, being a business analyst and a quality assurance person, you're usually asked upon to think about, you're really designing how something is going to work, and you're going to propose this. And then you also, at least in the way we approach things, you also have to devise a series of tests to verify that what you want built actually works the way it's supposed to work. In a case like that, you have to go through sort of all of the logical combinations, all the different sorts of paths that a user could potentially go down and make sure that those are all covered. That's one very simple example that I find it's very valuable for that. Problem solving, though, I think is, and again, problem solving is not necessarily something you learn getting a philosophy PhD, but to see a problem, to understand a contradiction, to understand a dilemma, and to know when it's a real dilemma and when it's a false dilemma is very valuable.
It's very important.
Very valuable.
And to be able to articulate it. I think people, and that's where you guys have a strength, right? To be able to articulate it and be able to articulate it and have that conversation. Because a lot of times our problems we have with our clients right now is people not knowing how to articulate things. To really listen to them, hear the problem, articulate it back, and help get the noise out and say, okay, what is the problem? What is the real problem? And getting to that base. And I find, that's why I find like these types of degrees and people are better at coming in and helping articulate things. People I find that are very technical are very binary in thought, and sometimes they're too binary. So they hear something, they say, okay, that's the fact. And that's not always the fact. That's an opinion. And you then have to realize which opinions matter the most that get you to a solution that's valuable. And with our clients in general, right, people are in positions of power. And so people tend to take people in positions of power, meaning they have authority and therefore they know what they're talking about. And you have to sort of like navigate those waters of getting to what's being really said. So people that know how to articulate and sort of talk about those things and help them figure that stuff out is a great skill to have. Yeah.
Similar to that point, piggybacking on a couple other things. You mentioned when you had your stats about diversity on the board that 63% are not computer science majors.
Correct.
If you had to make an approximation or a feeling, how many of those are humanities majors?
I have no idea.
Ish.
They tend to
We're not
be-
hard number people.
Yeah.
Plus or minus 37%.
Most I tend to see are either business majors, English majors, and then philosophy. And so about maybe 25% of them are like philosophy majors.
That's much better than I
Ish.
thought it was going to be.
No,
I
yeah,
thought you were
but
going to tell me, yeah, well, most of them are business and engineering.
No,
so that's why I was
no, they're
That's just like
non-science.
their staff,
They're
yeah.
typically non-science degrees. Well, not engineering, computerish science degrees. So I just want to, yeah. And I'm always amazed, like when we have English majors. Really? I'm like, what? Like, why do you want to work here?
Some of them are 3 degrees in English.
Yeah, but they're fantastic. I mean, some of the people we have hired that come from sort of these non-science or computer science degrees have been some of our most phenomenal people, and they amaze me because I don't know how they do it. Like, because you're starting from such a deficit, but yet they rise, and then because they just have that passion, they excel, and they've actually excelled further in the company than others. And so, I always get amazed, and those are the ones I find are most creative, and they always come up with new ideas, and I was like, oh my God, I love that. And so, because to me, I'm not sure about you, but I hate doing the same thing every day, all the time. I don't like doing the same work. I don't want to go to the same project and do the same thing I did at the last project. That bores me.
Grading papers.
Yeah. So I want to so we had a question earlier because I think we're running out of time. So earlier I was asked, I talk a lot about the North American AC program, and I know others here are not all here are from North America, and I did mention we're in these other countries, and we do hire in these other countries, and some of them, they have similar, there's not a program like this, but they do have their own sort of intense onboarding type programs. And we are hiring in all these other countries. So if you are interested, the best thing to do is go to our website and go look at the careers that are in the countries. But we are hiring especially lots of hiring. We're definitely hiring like in Germany, London, India, a little bit in France, not a lot. We do have a little office in France, don't we still? We stopped? Okay. I thought we did. So Germany, Australia, Brazil, India, I already said.
Right.
Those countries.
So the
China.
Yeah, if you speak Portuguese and English, then you'll be a good fit for some Brazilian office. If you speak English and German, you'll be a good fit for one of the Germany offices. And if you speak Mandarin and English, then one of the China. But of course, you've got to be able to live there and have the appropriate. So I don't know if any of you are EU.
Oh, I forgot Africa as well.
EU citizenship, but you know, we have offices there.
Oh, South Africa and Uganda.
Yeah, right.
So just follow up on that. So if you wanted to look into that, you would apply directly.
Directly
you would
to
not
that
try
office.
to go through a
No.
traineeship
Right.
like this to then
No.
try
You would
to
not
change
go
to
to the North. You wouldn't be going through the North America program.
Okay. And is the North America program limited to U.S. citizens? If you are from, because I know that it's like all these I haven't looked into it, but I know it's very tricky to hire people who are not U.S. citizens.
Yes.
for
So
US
we do have a few that aren't U.S. citizens, but they have to. One thing, they have to have at least a visa to work here. We don't. In general, we try to not do that. Right? We try to hire you in the country of origin where you work, because the whole point of you working in those countries is we want to help build that economy there, not help you here. Right? Help you there. We do make exceptions every now and then. I know this year I'm actually trying not to be very honest, because we run into lots of problems. Because typically they're working in the United States, there's this weird thing where you have to work more than one company within 2 years, and so therefore you just blew up working for us and being in the program. So there's lots of red tape and stuff to get around. So we typically, for that, someone has to be exceptional and has to have a skill set that we really need, because there's a lot you got to do through the whole process. But we do. But I'm just saying it's difficult.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Wow.